Okay, all right. Shalom. We are getting ready to continue our Yom Teruah observance. We brought in the feast last night, and we will continue on today. We want to look at some of the significances of the day, Yom Teruah, the Day of Trumpets, and how different things we see about it in the scriptures, what it means for us today, based on what it was created for, and what we how we see it explained through the scriptures. Okay, so Yom Teruah, if we look in the book of Leviticus 23, where we find all of our holy days listed. If we look in Leviticus Vayikra 23, starting with verse 23. Let's see here, 23 and 24. We see, let's see. Whiskey, you want to read that? Nice and loud. Louder than AC?
Leviticus 23, 23?
Yeah, and 24. Wait, and 25. 3 verses.
You
there yet?
And Elohim spoke unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, In the 7th month, in the 1st day of the month, shall ye have a Sabbath, a memorial of blowing of trumpets in holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein, but ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto Elohim.
Okay, good. Very good. So, that there is right now, right? The first day of the 7th month. First day of the 7th month. Yom Teruah, the Day of Trumpets. It says we're supposed to have a memorial of blowing of trumpets, which that word there is Teruah. Teruah, as it is there in Leviticus 23:24, Teruah looks like this. Teruah. It means it's translated there as a blowing of trumpets. It means a clamor, an acclamation of joy, a battle cry, a blast of war, a shout, a sound of tempest, and rejoicing. We kind of did a little bit of that last night with our trumpet sounds and all of our loud noises and things that we was making. But we were doing Teruah. We're making a loud, rejoiceful noise, right? If you singing unto Yahweh, really that's Teruah, right? That's an acclamation of joy, right? So this here trumpets it says a memorial of blowing of trumpets, a memorial. So if you are memorializing a thing, you're remembering a thing. You're remembering something. So when we think about this idea of remembering Teruah, remembering these feast times, one way that you remember something is kind of by rehearsing a thing, right? If you rehearse, if you practice, if you kind of do a thing, you know, repetitiously, you know, it causes you to remember, right? If you do things over and over again, it causes you to remember, right? So we do this annually, and we, you know, we remember, right? So the way that we remember, even though I know that I've explained what Teruah actually means, I feel like I'm rehearsing it. I'm remembering it. I'm zakroning it by going over it again, because you know when we think about it, you know that's how we remember. So we'll go into the meaning of the word Teruah, and then we'll take it a little further from there. So when we look at the word Teruah, if we look at it in the ancient, which you know I wrote it up and down just for list purposes, so we can get some definitions over here. It looks like this: Teruah, Ta-ru-ah. Now, I wonder if anyone.
No, I know.
I wonder if anyone has their is up on their ancient pictographs. No. You could have cheated without saying.
I got a cheat sheet. I know that she has a cheat sheet too.
Everybody has.
Didn't that mean like N? N? Maybe not.
Oh, wait, that's it.
And
Sign. I have
sign.
It doesn't mean sign. It's in a minute.
Sign. It's a mark.
Mark. Yeah.
Next is Resh.
That's a first top beginning.
Right, which is the man's head, so it gives you the idea of first, top, what is what, beginning,
I have
beginning,
head and chief.
head, chief. You know, it's a good man in there also.
Man.
Next,
For the race, yeah.
yeah. Next is the Vav. Hey, very good. Secure.
Does he have this thing up?
I don't know.
have anything up.
I don't have
Actually,
secure.
Oh wow, he knew that?
To add.
Quit embarrassing us.
To add.
I know it's a quit embarrassing.
Next is the Ein. The Ein.
Oh, I didn't even see that. And watch no shade.
To watch.
This is good.
To know. It's the eye. To watch and to know. Oh, that's good. Intimate. We also have the idea of intimate. Intimate knowledge. Also, what we find when we look at the Ein the iron actually also had an older version of the iron that was found that actually looked at like this. So it's the same letter, but it looks like this. This is a twisted rope. So the twisted rope has the it carries a idea of being twisted or being
Isn't it like
huh?
there's a word that isn't it like I don't know if it's chaos or it might not be good or bad. It could be either way or something like that.
Chaos.
Wasn't it something like it could be good or bad or something like that? The iron.
Oh, well, when we look at the iron in terms of the older version of the iron and the later version, inside of the iron, you have both of those things based on the twisted rope and the eye. So you would have within this one letter, you have both aspects.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
And then the hay
Uh-huh.
is, of course, the man with his arms raised,
Mhm.
which we find there giving us breath, revelation. That aha moment, right? Revelation. Inside. Okay, so when we look at this word teruah, the root actually is the resh, the vav, and the ayin. The hey and the tav are both prefix and suffix
Wow.
to this word ruah, which means just this shout. Yeah, I'm already here. Okay. So when we look at teruah, when we look at ruah, we look at this idea of shouting, right? Even in just teruah, we can see, even here, it's an acclamation of joy, and it's a battle cry, right? So you see the idea where it could be a happy shout, or it could be like a battle cry, which is not necessarily happy, right? It's serious.
It's a call to war, right?
Yeah, it's a call to war. So you can have this thing that's a call for joy, or a call for pain. It's an alarm. It's something that wakes up. When we think about an alarm, this thing that wakes you up, that calls your attention to a thing. The thing that is calling your attention to could be something that's pleasant, or it could be something that's not so pleasant. But it nevertheless is still something that is making you aware of a thing, right? So when we look at the pictures, right, we see that we look at this, whether we look at these three letters or these three letters, right, is giving us a what we could look at as a positive outcome and this negative outcome, right? If we are bringing security to knowledge, like to the man, right? The man bringing security or adding to knowledge or intimate knowledge, right? That's a way that you're drawing closer to something, right? You're drawing closer, you're adding to intimate knowledge. Or you're, as the man, you're adding perversion or added twistedness to the man, right? Or securing twistedness to the man. When we have this message of Yeshua, it either draws you closer to your maker, or it leaves you in a state of twistedness, a state of perversion, right? We are, from the time that we are little toddlers, like my wonderful daughter, Ariel.
No, sorry,
Oh, she's clearly wonderful.
Oh my goodness.
But she's a little perverted soul already, right? And that's just how she was made. Some people are more perverted than others, right? But this is something that is naturally in you, right?
Oh my God, conversation.
So it's necessary. It's necessary for all mankind to be called into knowledge, called to intimate knowledge unto the Most High, out of their perversion, right? You're already in perversion, right? You need to be called out, right? So when that call goes out, when the call of salvation goes out, when that battle cry is sounded, right? Again, it either draws you close to the Creator, or it can cause separation, or just continues the separation that already exists. When there's a battle cry, you're either on the side of the people making the cry, you're either on the offense or the defense, right? If you're doing the offensive, you're doing things for your good. You're doing things that benefit you if you're on the offense. And of course, if you're on the defense, something negative is happening to you, right? When we think about the gospel message, if we just was to say Yeshua let's just say he's coming tomorrow, as these people say,
Yeah.
right? That in and of itself is Teruah. If we say that Yeshua is coming tomorrow, to those that are followers of Yeshua, that is an acclamation of joy, right? Because if he's coming for us, right? But if you're not on the side of Yeshua, and that same sentence is expressed, that same thing, I'm not saying something different, Yeshua's coming tomorrow, that's bad news for you that aren't part of Yeshua's kingdom, right? So that same message is either going to draw you closer to the master, because when Yeshua comes, however he is, that's how you will be. That's what it says, right? However he is, that's how you will be. So you'll be drawn closer to him, right? But also, it talks about people. If you're unrighteous, you'll just be unrighteous still, right? And the righteous will be righteous still, right? However you are when he comes, that's how you're going to be. So if you're not on his side, when that message goes out, right, it's just going to add to your perversion. It's just going to add to your twisted.
That's why, because in the book of Revelations, when people are in the rocks and they just said, let the rocks fall on us or whatever, because they still aren't going to worship Yahweh. They're still not going to change their evil ways.
Yeah. So this is the message that we see in Teruah in terms of this call that goes out. In our case, it's a call unto Yahweh. It's a call unto Yeshua. It's a call unto the people to return to the Creator. It's the gospel. It's the good news. It's the glad tidings. It's the message of salvation which lies in Yeshua. When we look at Yom Teruah as a feast, the feast days give us a outline of the total plan of salvation. When we look at what Yom Teruah represents, the day of trumpets, what it represents, that call to repentance, that call to secure intimate knowledge with the one that gives us breath, right? That is really what we should be dealing with in terms of our actions. We should be those ones who are making this call. That's how we spread the gospel. If the gospel be hid, it's hid to those that are already twisted. It's hid to those that are already lost, right? Where we're supposed to be those that are actually spreading this this knowledge, this life, this good news, right? So it can't be something where people have to figure out, right? We're not walking around as this kind of riddle to people, unless it's something that causes people to kind of want to know about what this thing is that you do. But it definitely shouldn't be, like, unfortunately, a lot of these people that I actually know, that unless they were to physically tell you that they were followers of the Son of Elohim, the Savior that's presented to us in the Bible, unless they say it to me outright, based on their actions, I wouldn't know, right? Because they look really just like in their behaviors and their words, and the things that they do, the things they say, the way that they think is, it looks just like the world, right? So when we look at this Teruah, right, even in the word we can see a difference between those that belong to Yeshua and those that don't belong. And our life really is the same. There should be a difference. There should be a distinction between those that are followers of Yeshua and those that are on the outside. Right now, again, when we think about this Yeshua actually returning, that's the time when really, what I would say, where it's kind of, the cutoff point whenever he returns. But until he returns, it's always There's always time for this rope to become untwisted. Right? There's always a chance for you to actually come out of this state of perversion, this state of separateness from the Father, and actually gain that intimate knowledge with the Creator. And that's what the call is for. That, you know, our call that we shout out, which we actually shout out, and which we shout out in our deeds and how we live, you know, us shining our lights in the world, is for the express purpose of those that are twisted and that are in a state of perversion, for them to come and, you know, to forsake, you know, the wicked ways and turn unto the Master. We look at Yom Teruah being how it's kind of the it's the beginning of these feasts that are all inside of the 7th month, the 7th biblical month. The next one being Day of Atonement, which is about judgment. Right? So Yom Teruah is that call to prepare for judgment. It's that call to prepare for judgment. Right? So you know, this is, you know, what we look at when we think about the kind of the significance of Yom Teruah as being a picture of where we are really in our life. And also we think about it kind of from a eschatological kind of in time kind of context, is dealing with you know, the eternal judgment that's connected to you know, that's set for every man. Right? So it's necessary for us all, and the Most High desires for all men to repent and to turn back to Him. And He definitely requires of us, those who have turned already towards Him, to kind of perpetuate, to keep that thing going, the cycle going of sounding the alarm, of awakening His people through His Spirit inside of them.
So when you get awakened, you don't be quiet about your awakening.
No, it's not a secret. It's not a secret.
It's not something that you just keep to yourself.
No, it's something that you share. It's something that you express in your actions. It's something that you express in words. Words are necessary. It shouldn't be just about your actions. It should be in word and in deed.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so again, just kind of to verify, when we looked at the Numbers, I think. Because we can see just based on the word, this idea of this one thing having different kind of connections. But if we look in, let's see, Numbers 10. Numbers 10. Numbers chapter 10, verse 2, where it says, "Make thee 2 trumpets of silver, with a whole piece shalt thou make them. Thou shalt that thou mayest use them for the calling of the assembly and for the journeying of the camps." So there we see these trumpets are made for the purposes of gathering the people. Right, for the purpose of gathering those that are Yahweh's people. right? For a call for assembly. Verse 3, and when they shall blow with them, all the assembly shall assemble themselves to thee at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. Verse 4, and if they blow but with one trumpet, then the princes which are heads of the thousands of Israel shall gather themselves unto thee. Okay, so that's another aspect of the same idea of this gathering of the people. But that's just a kind of a general gathering. But then verse 5 says, when thou blow an alarm, when the camps, then the camps that lie on the east parts shall go forward. So now it's talking to, so now you have the idea of gathering with the first 4 verses. Then 5 is now that the idea of movement, right? So we're still talking about the blowing of the trumpets. So in one aspect, it's a coming together, and then another aspect is this kind of a movement that's going on, right? Verse 9, and if you go to war in your land against an enemy that oppresses thee, then you shall blow an alarm of the trumpets, right? So 5 is just dealing with general kind of a movement, and then 8 is just is a call to war, right? So you have all these different aspects going on. Verse 10, also in the day that your gladness, and in your solemn days, and in the beginning of your months, you shall blow with the trumpets over your burnt offerings and over sacrifices of your peace offerings, that they may be for you a memorial before your Elohim. I am Yahweh your Elohim. Right? So then you also have this blowing of trumpets that's going on, that's dealing with a declaration of months and with these burnt offerings that were made. So again, we can see in the word itself these different aspects, 2 different aspects that's in just the word. And then now when we look at these different occasions of blowing of trumpets that's listed for us in Numbers chapter 10, we see again different purposes for these the blowing of the trumpets. Okay, anybody have any thoughts or anything about any of that stuff?
I like that Yom Teruah is a new moon.
Yeah.
It says it's just one of the new moons.
Right, it's just one of the.
I just want to say something real quick. Sometimes, like when you're looking at other nations of people, like Indians and Chinese and stuff like that, they have like a way about themselves.
Yeah.
And they have a culture about themselves. And it's like the more I'm learning about our Hebrew culture, we have these customs and these traditions and these things that we did. That it's just, I mean, it's just important to know those aspects of it, like just the simple parts of just blowing the alarm or blowing the trumpet.
Yeah.
And these certain things that we do. It's just like that's just was a part of our culture. That's just what we did. And it's just nice knowing that we have a culture outside of hip hop.
Yeah, there's a kind of the modern
those things,
culture. Yeah. So I think that's part of, I would say, of the alarm, is understanding more closely the ways of the Most High and His people. Right? The more we draw closer to Him, the more He shows us His ways that He set in place, for us. It's kind of like it's kind of the natural occurrence of things when we seek after Yahweh, when we seek after that intimate knowledge of Him. Again, it looks like something, right? And this is something that, that is important for us to understand in terms of the culture. It looks like something. His people actually should look a certain way,
Right.
behave a certain way, do certain things. And that's part of his regathering us. Part of his the last part of the regathering of Israel is actually being over in the land. That's the last part, right? But as we move forward unto that last part, that regathering deals with, our way of life, our culture.
Well, I was thinking about, we know people who don't celebrate the feast.
Yeah.
And they don't even really think, they're, they say they're Israelites and everything, but they don't celebrate the feast days.
Yeah.
But they don't memorialize these things in any way.
Right.
So it's like, whereas we have this constant reminder of the trumpet call and what that means and how, we're gonna be gathered or whatever, you know what I mean? And the call to war or the call of repentance. If you don't repent, it's a call to war. That's not in the forefront of their minds.
Yeah.
Because they're not memorializing it.
Right. And it's.
And so for us, it's like, since we do it every year, and the children, they're blowing the trumpets and they're blowing the noisemakers and it's like it's in their minds at least, you know what I mean? Just by the virtue that they actually are doing these things, it's in their minds at least what a trumpet call is, or
right.
What a call,
Yeah, it's hard for me to kind of put somebody in the category of being Israel when you're not following after the things that Yahweh said for you to be doing. And these are the things that kind of mark you as being his people, is walking in obedience.
What is that? The Tav.
It's a sign.
It's a sign.
Right? There should be a mark on you.
Mm-hmm.
There should be a mark on you
behavior.
That you're a man that's being secured in your intimate knowledge with the spirit, with the breath of life. Right? There should be a mark on you. And that mark is you walking in obedience to the Most High. And it's got to be more than you just saying, I'm an Israelite. Right? It's got to be more than that. It's got to be, to me, when I look at things that, when I look at, for instance, when we started Leviticus 23 and deals with these set apart times, Yahweh has created this calendar, and these are his appointed times. And for somebody to say, well, because I'm in exile, I'm not going to remember these things that Yahweh told me to remember, I don't understand that concept, right? If he says to remember this thing, I'm going to remember it the best that I can, because he said to do that, right?
There's a reason behind him saying it.
Right.
And it's not a physical. Like, to me, when you're looking at that, you're just focusing on the physical. You're not focusing on the spiritual.
Right, what it actually represents.
Yeah.
But to me, again, I feel like these people who, come up with these ideas of I don't have to do these feast days because we're not in the land. It don't coincide with what the Spirit is called to do. The Spirit is called to cause you to do the commandments of Yahweh. The Spirit was specifically and purposefully sent to actually cause you to do the will of Yahweh. So when you say that you are a follower of Yahweh, but there's nothing inside of you that's causing you to have a desire to do those things which are pleasing unto Yahweh, then I don't know, I don't understand that. To me, I can't understand it. I don't get it. But there's, I know that there's many people like it, and they have their different justifications, but I just don't get it. Okay, so let's do this. Let's look at Matthew 22, 1 through 14. I'm going to look at a couple things. Matthew, Matityahu, chapter 22, verses 1 through 14.
1 through 14.
You want to read that now?
Yeah, I can read. You know what? I can read. Let me just get it on here first. I can read it better. 2. And Yeshua answered and spake unto them again by parables, and said, The kingdom of heaven is like unto a certain king, which made a marriage for his son, and sent forth his servants to call them that were bidden to the wedding, and they would not come. Again he sent forth other servants, saying, Tell them which are bidden, Behold, I have prepared my dinner. My oxen and my fatlings are killed, and all things are ready. Come into the marriage. But they made light of it, and went their way, one to his farm, another to his merchandise, and the remnant took his servants, and entreated them spitefully, and slew them. But when the king heard thereof, he was wroth, and he sent forth his armies, and destroyed those murderers, and burned up their city. Then saith he to his servants, The wedding is ready, but they which were bidden were not worthy. Go ye therefore into the highways, and as many as ye shall find, bid to the marriage. So those servants went out into the highways and gathered together all as many as they found, both bad and good. And the wedding was furnished with guests. And when the king came in to see the guests, he saw there a man which had not on a wedding garment. And he saith unto him, Friend, how camest thou in hither, not having a wedding garment? And he was speechless. Then said the king to the servant, Bind him hand and foot, and take him away, and cast him into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth, for many are called, but few are chosen.
Okay. So, when we look at Yeshua and his teachings, we see many times where he begins by saying, the kingdom of heaven is like. The kingdom of heaven is like ellipses, right? He says it's like a mustard seed. It's like a fig tree, right? It's like a lime. It's all of these things. But so when we look at that, we can see that Yeshua is describing, he's describing the kingdom, entrance into the kingdom in a way that is understandable for the audience, or that can be understood by the audience. Again, the very fact that he's speaking in parables is giving you the idea that, as I kind of got to step back a little bit, because when you talk about parables in the beginning, it's not readily understandable to the hearer necessarily. It can be understood by the hearer, but it's not something that's just automatic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I get it. Like, right? Because that's how Yeshua deals with, that's how he makes his, he made, as a man when he walked the earth, that's how he made his acclamation of joy was through parables, which caused the hearer to come closer. If they wanted to have understanding, and to maybe if they didn't want to have any understanding, they would stay afar off. Right? If you heard that parable, it's like, wow, I wonder what he was trying to say with that. That kind of struck a chord inside of me. I wonder what it is that what he meant by that. So that is causing you to want to watch a little closer, or it's causing you to want to draw a little closer to the master. If he's saying something, it's just totally, I just don't even get it. Like, I don't even care to even try. Right? That's just you in your perversion. But when we look at that, we can see that Yeshua, he wasn't quiet. He made a noise, but he didn't give you all the answers. He didn't give you all the answers just straight away. He gave you something that either caused you to come closer to him, or to the individual in their own personal rebellion would just wouldn't have an ear to hear and just kept on going about what they was going about. So when we look at this whole thing, this thing that he went through in terms of this, speaking about the kingdom of heaven is like, he goes into saying it's like unto this certain king, which made a marriage for his son. Right? When we look at that, it's easy for us. It's easy for us to look at that and see what the Father has done for Israel and Yeshua, right? A certain king which made a marriage for his son. A certain king, right?
Yeah.
We can look at that and say, oh, that certain king that he's referring to is the Most High, is Yahweh, right? Who's making a marriage for his son. He's preparing a marriage for his son, a bride for his son, right? We know that the bride is Israel, is the bride. The people of Yahweh is the bride of Yeshua, right? So here Yeshua is talking about this thing that's going to be figured out by his people further on down the line as the apostles grow and become teachers and go out and teach and all these things, and they gain revelation from Yeshua. But when we look at this now, we got the full picture of the bride of Messiah and the wedding and Yeshua as the son of Elohim. We got the full picture now, but when we're looking at this, if we was just hearers at this time, looking at this thing that was going out, we'd be kind of lost a little bit, right? I mean, it's an interesting story, but what's that got to do with the kingdom of heaven?
Yeah, if you was listening to Yeshua talking,
yeah, if you was right there, if you was like an
I'd be
actual
like, why are
audience
we
member,
talking about a marriage?
a wedding, like what does this even mean? Like, what's he talking about?
Like when long-winded people start talking, you just start like kind of maybe zoning out a little bit.
Yeah, if you're twisted and perverted, but if that long, if you're interested,
is only but so big.
So that's a perversion, right? That's something that can be changed, right, and fixed.
I wouldn't have understood the part where he says, "Go get the good and the bad," but I'm getting kicked out because I ain't dressed right. But the bad is sitting up in here.
Well, maybe the
'Cause they
bad, maybe the bad and the one who's not dressed right is the same one.
It's just the good or the bad.
So when we think about the fact that go out and
Okay,
gather the good
okay.
and the bad. It don't sit up here and choose.
Just bring them all,
Just bring everybody.
and then I'm gonna throw out the bad.
I'm gonna get rid of who ain't supposed to be there.
Okay, yeah.
But
okay.
don't you sit up here and try to figure it out.
Yeah,
If you sitting up here and being selective.
Because
You can't be selective with your calling, right? Because
that
it ain't about
here
you.
you go.
You just make the
I
noise.
didn't fully understand. Yeah,
The
I didn't
hearer-
fully get that then.
The hearer either is
I'm
going
like,
to
you
draw
getting
closer
down off the
or
line
stay
with-
in their perversion. That's
There
on the
you go.
hearer. The
Yeah,
hearer is the one who's going to choose.
very interesting.
Right? You're not going to sit up and say, well, that person don't even look
That's
like
a life
they
on,
trying
but
to-"
I did not think
But
of it like. I just thought about something else, like the parable of the sower.
That
He
is.
talks about sowing seed, and he says some seed is going to fall on rocks, some seed will fall on
Right.
good soil, some seed will fall. Like you're when you're throwing out the seed, you're
Yeah,
just
you don't
throwing
know
it.
where. Yeah,
You don't really know what that ground is
It's
gonna
Yahweh
do
who
with
does
it.
the work. Yeah,
You always want to does the work.
Yahweh the one does the
That's
work.
I didn't even think about that.
It's the same exact concept where we see that Yeshua, he tells this story different ways. Here he's talking about these servants that he's sending out to give this call.
Uh-huh.
Well, it's the same thing as where he's casting out those to come, and then whether they come or not, whether that it don't have nothing to do with the sower. He's throwing the seed. The servants, they're making the call to come, but with the servant is not deciding where to put the call at. He's just putting the call out there.
Yeah, because if it was the servant's decision,
Hold on 1 second, Chris. I can't really. Let me make sure my volume's up here. Okay, go ahead.
yeah, because if it was the decision, I wouldn't have made it in. He would have looked at me and been like, "Oh, nah, he ain't, don't even bother with him." Because
Right.
I was the bad.
Right, because the sower don't really know the heart of the individual. Only Yahweh knows the heart, right? So
People use that in other ways.
People-
Yahweh knows my heart.
yeah, Yahweh knows your heart, right? So yeah, you're absolutely right. If the servant looked at you when you was out in the world and said, well, I'm not even going to bother dealing with this individual, then, many people, sad to say, end up on that other side because of the fact that the servant's sitting up there trying to choose, right? So when we look at this, we see a clear example of Yahweh, that call going out to whosoever will, whoever comes, make the call out to the good and the bad. They can all come, and then we'll see when they get here who's gonna stay and who's gonna go. Right?
Very good.
And when we look at verse 11, that's what happens. When the king came in to see the guests, he came to see who actually came. And then he saw the man who had not on a wedding garment. How you coming to a wedding and you ain't even dressed? Right.
Wow.
You know what I mean? How you come here
Yeah, that
and
makes
you ain't even got your Shabbat best on. Right?
Wow.
How you coming in like this, right?
Well, that's good stuff. Right
So that wedding garment, right? Which we'll talk about. But let's deal with, before we get into the wedding garment, let's deal with verse 14 where it talks about this idea of being, it says, for many are called, but few are chosen.
That's my favorite verse.
That's his favorite verse. Many are called, but few are chosen. We look at the word that's translated as called there. That word in the Greek carries the idea of being invited to a thing, being appointed for something. Right? If I invite you, you know, it's a call out to you. Right? I've appointed this slot of time. I've made it available. I made myself available for you at this particular time, right? This invitation. It's an invitation. It's a calling out. It's a hail. A hail, as if like you're hailing a cab, right? You're calling over here, right? There is inciting by word. Hey, over here, like I'm calling out, right? The call is really just this general thing that's going out to whoever hears the thing. It's the call. It's an audible sound that's going out. Some type of designation, some type of thing that's happening that's causing you to recognize that you're being summoned, right? It's just totally kind of general. When we think about Shema, which is to hear, right? It's to hear with obedience. So it's more than just an audible sound with Shema. It's more than you just physically hearing something. It's you hearing it and doing something as a result of it. Like, my older children understand if I'm calling you, right? Actually come to me, right? You hear what I'm saying, and because you hear what I'm saying, you're responding to it, right? Or is she still learning? She don't really understand, like when I'm saying for you to come here, you actually come here, right? You actually come over here and see what I'm saying, right? So she may physically hear me, but it's not Shema. It's not Shema because there's not that obedience that's connected to it, right? So so when we think about this Greek idea of called, many are called, that's not necessarily Shema. It's just that sound going out, and the obedience part is not necessarily connected to it, right? When we talk about many are called, many will hear the sound. Many will hear that loud signal, right? But some people gonna hit the snooze button right on the alarm. Some people not gonna wake up, right? Some people not gonna take heed to the call. Just like when we looked at here in this story, where they sent the servants out with the message, and then the people sat up there and was killing the servants that was going out with the message. Like, you know, they don't care about the message, and I don't care about the message so much. I'm just gonna make you my servant and kill you. I don't really
understand why they felt the need to kill the servant.
Some people is crazy, but think about your life even right now. As aware, I want to come to you and tell you about this thing that I know, this magnificent thing, and then you receive some type of verbal persecution for me just trying to help you, or you not even just a simple fact that somebody might sit up and try to act like you think you're better than them
Next step. That's the next step.
without you even like you didn't. I never said I was better than you.
You obviously have something.
But it
inside
yeah.
your own self.
Yeah. So that perversion,
happens.
that twistedness inside of people, when they even just see, they're seeing the light. They see the light, but it's offensive to them, right? As to where here we see a gross example of that, where these people killed the messenger, right? But people are kind of metaphorically kind of killing you in their mind when they sit up there and persecute you because you believe a certain kind of way.
Because you believing a certain kind of way, it brings condemnation to them. Yeah. So if I believe a certain kind of way, and those people aren't, I'm thinking about or talking to or whatever, if they're not, doing this, or they don't have this belief.
You're saying I'm not saying that.
Yeah, that's what happens,
this
right?
This is salvation. So you're saying I'm not saying. Yeah, people do get highly offended.
Well, look at it. If I got a nice wicked operation going, and then here you come as a messenger that's kind of stopping my wicked organization from running like a fine-tuned machine, then you're an obstacle. I got to get out the way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yes, this thing is a threat to, the capitalist system and to a lot of the different systems throughout, civilization. That's why they killed the prophets. That's why they killed, Yeshua.
They killed the prophets.
They did.
So this is what really happened.
I didn't even think about that, Christian. They killed the prophets.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and because the prophets had the Teruah, they had a call.
Yeah.
I mean,
they
but
were given a call too.
I guess if it's a call to war or whatever, then people are gonna get upset. It's a call to war.
Yeah. I mean, I guess because at the end of the day, I guess at the end of the day, the truth of it is confrontational, because the truth of it is saying that you're lost.
Yeah,
you're lost and you're dead, and everything that you think is wonderful in life is actually nothingness.
Yeah.
Unless when you think about it, it is confrontation.
Yeah, shedding light on their darkness.
You're bound to utter and everlasting punishment unless it's harsh. It's a battle cry. Absolutely. But I think that when you have this kind of a return, it seems as if when you have that strong kind of combativeness towards it, it seems like in that person there is a little bit of belief in what's going on. Because if you don't really care, it's just like whatever.
Yeah.
But if you care a little bit, if you feel that condemnation, if you feel that threat, right, on the other side, then it's gonna cause you to counterattack. But if you could care less, then it's just like whatever, you know what I mean? I don't even really.
That's so true. That is so true. What you talking about. That is so true.
I've experienced that before.
Which?
Like it's the like somebody trying to tell me something that's not really important, and then it's like that's not. I don't even believe it.
Like the world is tomorrow.
Like the world is going to end tomorrow. Yeah. Like I'm not really even thinking about it.
Right, because at the end of the day, if it really does happen, then that's good news for you.
Yeah.
So it's not like
they could do. Ain't nothing they could do about it anyway.
But I'm saying that, like, you know, if it was something that I actually cared about or whatever, I'd be like, oh my goodness.
Like that's what we doing the same thing.
Yeah.
We keep doing the same thing.
It's interesting that, see, you know, people killed the messenger, but sometimes what I've experienced is that whenever I speak with someone, they get silent. Like they don't want to talk about it anymore. They kind of like shut down. You know what I mean? If they don't want to do it, they just, you know, they just don't want to talk about it.
Well, I've experienced the other
Or
battle.
confrontational,
Me and Grace cannot, absolutely cannot
have a conversation.
have a conversation spiritually. Or shall I say, religiously.
Yeah.
It can't happen. She gets so mad. And you trying to say this, you better than me. I said, oh my goodness. It just can't happen. So I know firsthand. That's so true. So true.
So yeah, to me, I feel like there's a little bit of kind of understanding that what you're saying is real.
Yeah, or what they say.
Or so what? Like I don't really, if what you got to say is not really affecting me, then it really ain't going to affect me, and I don't got nothing. I could care less. Like if you want to sit up here and talk to me about what Allah has in store for me, you know what I mean? That's interesting. Like, you know what I mean? I don't really, I could care less.
Yeah, you're gonna be arguing.
Right, but if it's something that I kind of believe a little bit, then it's gonna cause me to.
Yeah.
Like Yeshua, like the Last Supper wasn't a Passover meal or something. He's over there arguing with the prisoners about that.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so again, when we look at this here, verse 14, 22:14, many are called. Many people actually audibly hear the message. Many people audibly hear the shofar blast, the trumpet blast, the clamoring sound. Many people hear the alarm. But few, it says, are chosen. Few are chosen. The word chosen in the Greek is select or favorite or choice, to make choice or choose or chosen. So when we think about this idea of the fact that Yahweh, Yeshua talks about the fact that nobody comes to the Father unless they're drawn. When we look at Romans, chapter 8. Verse 30, where it says, moreover, whom he did predestinate, them he also called, and whom he called, he also justified. Oh, that's the big first part. Moreover, whom he did predestinate, them he also called, and whom he called, he justified, and whom he justified, he glorified. So when we think about the idea of predestination and this actual choosing of Yahweh's elect, those that are actually going to follow after the will of Yahweh, the ones who are actually going to receive that spiritual heart transplant and actually be awakened by this message. That word in the Greek is favorite, chosen. We look at
favorite.
Yeah, when we look at Exodus and 19, where it talks about the peculiar people, a peculiar treasure. Like a peculiar treasure is, again, this favorite piece of jewel. That's your favorite, right? Your choicest possession, your prized possession, right? When we look at the elect, the chosen of Yahweh, again, he chooses us based on his foreknowledge. He chooses us based on the fact that he knows our hearts, right? He knows that we will be obedient to the call, right? So in that regard, you are the favorite, and everybody who audibly hears the call is not going to choose to follow. Everybody who hears the call is not going to choose to follow. So there's a difference between those that are called. We look at this, the parable about the wedding feast. Everybody was called. There was no real selection process in the call that went out. There was no selection.
Everybody, good and bad,
right? Everybody came. But then we see that there was those that prepared for the coming, and then there was those that didn't prepare.
Just get up and come.
And different things happen. Different things happen to, the different ones who came. Right? There is a distinction between the two. There is a Hebrew equivalent word of this here, chosen. This word that is translated in the Greek as chosen. There's a Hebrew equivalent word that is bakar.
Oh, I heard
Bakar. It looks like that.
Isn't that like no,
it's upside
that's
down.
upside, it's to the side, yeah. Why do you always write it that way?
No, I'm not.
But you wrote Teruah Yom at the top of the board.
I did. I just did it like this. At least I didn't spell it this way, but that way, like I seen somebody do. My Western ass, right to left, man. Hold on. Yeah. Okay, so this word bakar means, this word bakar means select. Bakar means select. It means choice. Select, choice. Excellent.
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 Excellent. Choose. It also means you.
Prime of your life.
The choicest part of the life. That's just some people's thought processes, right? We look at this. You have the tent plan, the house plan. You have the fence. the fence, which shows a distinction between the in and the out. And you have the man's head, the man. So if you have this plan that shows a distinction for man, right? The plan that shows a distinction between in and out for man. The idea of the choices and the not so choices, right? When you're making a distinction, if you're having something that you would say is your favorite, you're making some type of designation, some type of distinction between it and everything else. Right? So this kind of is that description of the distinction of man. Right? Which is word, this is a word again that means choice or select. So, okay, so again, when we're talking about being the choices, being the bakar, being the ones that are drawing close to the Most High as opposed to those that are twisted and perverted, that distinction, right? That description of a distinction is the thing that separates. The thing that separates is what? The thing that separates is what?
Whose side you're on?
Huh?
Whose side you're on?
Yeah, but there's something that says, there's something that says whose side you're on.
Yeah, that rocky.
Yeah.
You believe in Yeshua? Yeah, that rock.
Yeah,
On his side.
Well, look.
That you came dressed.
You showed up right. You were prepared.
When we look at the bait, we look at the bait.
You're inside the house.
You're inside the house, but we also see the idea of we can see Yeshua in the bait, right? Can't we see Yeshua in the bait as the son, right? Yeshua is the son of the Most High, right? He's the son, right? He actually makes a distinction of man. When we choose to be followers of the Son, that's the distinction of man. That's what makes us the choice ones, right? That's what causes us to be selected, right? Is our obedience to the Son. Is our distinction.
That's our man. We have the mark. We have the sign.
Right, so those are the ones. Those are the ones who heard the call and was like, you know what? I need to get my garments ready.
Get some.
Yeah, I'm going out here to this marketplace, and I'm gonna get my garments together. Right, I'm gonna come right. Right, I'm gonna have the finest sandals, right, and the
Finest talit.
yeah, ever. Right.
But I mean, I think if we took the calling, now we all received the calling, we all answered the calling, but if we took that calling as seriously as it should be taken, I think that we would be examining ourselves and our clothing on a constant basis to make sure that are we looking the way we're supposed to be looking, spiritually, you know what I mean? Are we representing?
You're absolutely
I mean,
right.
I got distracted when I had 2 kids or whatever. Somebody had to tell me I had a hole in my skirt because I just don't really even be thinking about it. So they was like, well, you really should go out and get yourself some new clothes, And I could have taken offense to that, but I looked at the hole in the skirt and I was like, I was like, either I'm gonna get a patch or I'm gonna buy a new skirt, you know? But at the same time, it was something that had to be dealt with, you know what I mean? So I think that we should all be like that. We should all constantly examine ourselves spiritually. And then if we have somebody, because we get so distracted with life and we don't see it, somebody tells us about it, you know what I mean? Then we gotta deal with it, right?
That's a good thing.
So it's a good thing. It's
That's a
iron
good
sharpening iron.
That's what it's how it's meant to be.
Yeah.
Amen.
That's why
Thank
we
you, Father.
need each other.
Thank you, Father.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true, Sister Chick.
If I start acting up, somebody would be like, "Tiffany, you're acting up. You're not really representing the kingdom."
That's so true. That's so true.
And that really is an example of Teruah every day in their everyday life.
That's
Right? As to where this call is always going out. The call being
Amen.
Yeshua
Every
is
day.
going
Right.
to return. Yeshua is returning. And we always have to be able to look at ourselves through the lens of Yeshua, how Yeshua will look at us, right? How the Most High is going to look at us, right? He is going to look for Yeshua in us.
Right.
I didn't even.
He's going to look for Yeshua in us, right? So we have to be able to see what Yeshua will have for us to do, and then for us to actually walk in that, right? And so Yeshua will speak to us how? Through his spirit, which don't always got to be to you. It could be to me to talk to you, or you know what I mean, to you to talk to me. So through Yahweh's spirit speaking through his people to you.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So
That is right.
at all times we're dealing with this idea of Teruah, of this word going forth, that word that adds security to our intimacy or adds perversion to our situation, right? Okay, so let's look at Isaiah 61. We're still talking about the parable, but we want to look at the garments. We want to deal with these garments that
Isaiah 61.
we want to deal with these garments that are spoken of. Some people had on the right garments for the wedding, and then other people didn't. Right? Isaiah 61, 10 and 11.
Yeah, 60.
Isaiah 61, 10 and 11. Somebody read that.
Shoot. I'll read it. Give me 1 second. Isaiah 61,
Verse 10 and 11.
10. Okay, 10 is, I will greatly rejoice in Yahweh. My soul shall be joyful in my Elohim. For he hath clothed me with the garments of salvation. He hath covered me with the robe of righteousness. As a bridegroom decked himself with ornaments, and as a bride adorneth herself with her jewels. For as the earth bringeth forth her bud, and as the garden causeth the things that are sown in it to spring forth, so Yahweh Elohim will cause righteousness and praise to spring forth before all the nations.
Okay, very good. So we look at this. Now we're thinking about these garments, these wedding garments that were worn by these people, these wedding goers in Matthew chapter, what was that, 22 in the parable. And then over here we see in Isaiah where it says, I will greatly rejoice. I will greatly rejoice in Yahweh. My soul exalts in my Elohim, right? So you have this great rejoicing. You have this internal exulting, this thing that's kind of being generated internally, coming out, right, unto Yahweh, right? This acclamation of joy, right? That's what we talk about here, this acclamation of joy. This, you have this thing inside of you that you just can't even contain. It's on the inside and it just got to just come out, right? My being exalts in my Elohim, my soul, my nefesh, my appetite, my desires, who I am, my being exalts in Elohim. Why? For he has put garments of salvation, of deliverance on me. He has put garments of rescue, of liberty, of salvation on me. When we talk about what that is, when we talk about Teruah, when we talk about this acclamation of joy, this acclamation of joy is what? Yeshua in you. Yeshua in you. The fact that because you have faith in Yeshua, who is the Savior of mankind, right? You now have been delivered, right? So these garments of deliverance, this garment of deliverance that's on you is again Yeshua, right? Who has covered me with a robe of righteousness. Because of this thing that's on you, this thing that's in you, this transformation thing that's happened to you from the inside, that has caused your soul to be transformed and to now be at a place of exaltation and praise to Yahweh, when prior to that your soul was just about building your own self and puffing your own self up and your own desires and your own wants and needs and things. Now when Yeshua comes inside of you, when his Ruach HaKodesh comes inside of you and changes your soul from the inside, it causes you to be covered in righteousness, covered in these clothes of righteousness, right? Which includes what? Your actions. It includes how you are, the things that you do, right? It looks like something. It's describing righteousness as if it's some garments, because you can see it.
That's right.
It's different from you just kind of just being righteous on the inside. It's describing this thing as a robe of righteousness. Just like a bridegroom or a bride will put all of these, like how when Teresa and I tied the knot, you know what I mean? We had on, I had on my little white tuxedo with my little jewel tie looking thing and some cufflinks and all that, my white shoes and everything. And Teresa had on her little dress and everything with her little different kinds of colors on and everything else, right?
Adorned.
We got ready. We didn't just go to the wedding like, the t-shirt and tennis shoes, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I had a
Your
fresh
finest.
haircut.
Your finest.
Beard was just like, you know what I'm saying?
Finest.
You know, I don't think I ever
Finest.
seen. I don't think I ever seen Tirsha with no makeup on, except for on that day, right? She was done up, right? But that's what we talking about.
That's right.
That's what we talking about in terms of preparing. But we're talking about this as a robe of righteousness, as bride decks himself, or as a bridegroom gets himself ready. Like the comparison is that there's an outward representation. It looks like something, right? So you have the idea of this exaltation towards Yahweh, this internal change that causes an external manifestation, which we're talking about in sound and indeed it looks like something, right? Verse 11, 61:11, for as the earth brings forth its bud, as the garden causes the seed to shoot up. Again, it's the same concept, but it's dealing with it from a different perspective. So now it's talking about the earth bringing forth its bud. Again, the seed that was planted that grows, and as it grows, it brings forth something. Something is manifest. So something that you don't see, that seed that's inside, you don't see that. It's covered, it's buried, right? In this process of coming to life, there's death, right, in the seed, and then it grows and then it manifests into something. Right? And then the same thing with the garden causes the seed to shoot up. So again, we have this internal force that's going on, this internal thing that's happening that causes this external manifestation. And in this case, it's talking about righteousness. So the Master Yahweh causes righteousness and praise to shoot up before all the nations. Right? So this internal instigation that's going on from the Master is causing righteousness to flow out from you before all the nations. It's the same thing that we just looked at over there in Matthew 22 in terms of the servant going out, which we have become servants of Yeshua, servants of the Most High, sent out to tell the message of the gospel, which is Yeshua. Righteousness, our acts and deeds, Yeshua in us manifests through our actions, and praise towards Yahweh. This shout, this acclamation of joy, this alarm, this signal, Teruah being shouted and manifested out through us, out to all nations. Yom Teruah. Yom Teruah is about Ariel sitting there shaking that tambourine stick, except for her shaking the tambourine stick is really Yahweh in you, causing you to say Yeshua is returning. That's the clamoring sound, right, that's being made instead of like jingling. It's words that are expressing the return of the Master, who is Yeshua.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Okay, so that's what we have to say about Yom Teruah. Yom Teruah is a day, is a moment in time, but it's also representative of our life in Yeshua. As you know, we know that Yeshua is returning, and we want people to be glad about his return. We want for the fact that he's returning to cause people to want to draw closer to him as opposed to remaining in that twistedness and perversion. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions or comments about anything we're talking about?
I just think that's a beautiful breakdown of how the feast, goes all the way through explaining, calling you closer, calling you out. It's like a warning cry.
Yeah.
And how it's supposed to be dressed and for the marriage, and it's just, I don't know, the whole breakdown. That was really beautiful. Really beautiful outlook.
Okay. All right. So, okay, Yom Teruah. That's it. That's what we're doing right now. So, guess that's enough for now. We'll deal with some more, of course, later. Okay. All right.